Okay, so this is the meeting of the Water Commissioners on Tuesday, June 10th. And what I would like to just put in front of you is what we are sharing with the Select Board this evening. And that is essentially the kind of streamlined budget for the operations for 2023. And I think the important thing to show, you've seen this already, but the difference is that what we did with this was to take and move the debt service out of the operating budget, as Doug Gardner had suggested, that to keep the debt service separate from operations. So what you're looking at here is a schedule that shows the operating budget, and as I said, you've seen this before, that shows the total operating expenses for fiscal year 2023 of $186,087, and the operating revenues, the next line down, is 145,000. And that's essentially the revenues that we'd identified as potentially available from operations that would be used to cover those expenses. So it leaves a shortfall of $41,087 that would be required from a general fund contribution. Everybody with me on that?
Yep.
Okay. So then, but what I wanted really to point out is then that the debt service, you can see below the line there, the debt service at the bottom of the page shows the three different loans that we had. The USDA 1, which was initiated in May of 2010. That was a $1.5 million, and the contribution for that in principal for this year in payment would be $31,538, and the interest payment associated with that loan for this year is $27,877, for a total debt service for that initial loan back in 2010 of $59,415. The second loan that we had was one that was initiated in 2015. That was the work that was done on Sumner Avenue, and from the Mayo Beach area up over Sumner Avenue and then back into town. And that loan was for $1 million. The principal and interest payments due on that for this year are $48,206. And the final debt service or final loan that's on here is the one that was initiated in March of 21. And that's the one that's associated with the new water main, the Coles Neck water main. And that the total that was borrowed against that was $1,235,000. So the debt service associated with that is $101,900. The reason that one is so much more than the other two is that it has a shorter term on it than, I think it's 20 years as opposed to 40 years. So the total debt service for the year is $209,521, and this is the amount that Doug Gardner had recommended to us that the town be responsible to take on as to covering the debt, and that it should not be part of operations. So that's why we're showing it as on a separate area here. The revenues that are available to support, to fund that, are the deferred payments associated with connection fees that we've received in the last year. excuse me, in the last year, the interest payments of, and for total debt service revenues of 86,425. So what that leaves is a balance that's due to be paid from general fund contributions of 123,096. So that would be paid by the town as recommended by Doug Gardner and with Charlie Sumner also. So any questions? Excuse me. Any questions on that?
Jim, are the revenues associated with that, the 2023, is that based on the new rates?
For the debt service?
No, for operating revenues, service fees and water.
Yeah,
the 145, the
based on
145,000.
the new rates.
Okay, and the 135 is based on the old rates
That's what
for
came in
2022.
2022.
Right.
Okay. Those are, right. So it'd be based on the old rates.
So the new rates would be generating about 10,000 more in revenue?
According to this, yes. I mean, I did not check his numbers, but that's what it, yeah, it would come in. So. All right, so this, we're basically going to take this in front of the select board this evening. They were waiting on that. Any questions on it? Any other questions? All right. If there aren't any more on that, then I'd like to move into like a regular agenda, which was to continue the kind of discussion around the rate structure, rates, the associated kind of the plans for the unit methodology and dealing with multiple unit properties, things like that. So where would you like to begin? I assume we agree that the three-tier rate structure that we already reviewed, that is we're going to recommend using that going forward. Tom Flynn is with us, I see now. Okay.
You can hear me today.
We can, yes. Thank you, Tom.
Thank Felix. I should call Kurt, I guess.
All right. So, Kurt, where would you like to start with these?
Well, I think maybe we could pick the easy things first.
Okay.
I mean, I think the rate structure that that we have, before us makes a lot of sense. And as far as the residential rates, I don't think there's. I mean, I don't know if any board members have any concerns about that, but I would feel comfortable adopting the new rates as proposed.
Right.
For the residential customers, which would be the new rates of going to a three-tier structure. I don't know why we would go from 140 to 138 in the first block. I mean, I think we could just keep the first block the same. I know it's a really minor thing, but it doesn't make any sense why you would go down 2 cents.
Right.
But keep the first block at 140. The second block, he's proposed 942. And that's for 20,000 to 60,000 gallons. And then 1440 over 60,000 gallons. And that's based on a semi-annual block, and we had talked about going to quarterly. So, you know, I would move that we accept those rates, but that we change them to a quarterly basis.
But does that mean that we're gonna have to go to quarterly billing then for now?
Well, yeah, that was the idea, because then it's also going to take the $250 a year customer service fee, and it's going to break it up into 4 payments instead of 2. You know, so that's what I would move, unless the board wants to stick with semi-annual.
Just Kurt, just keep in mind that I've got to pay Pettichuck now 4 times
Right.
for 4 mailings. So that price goes up too. So just so
You know-
just comment, that's it.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know, do people have a strong feeling one way or another about that?
Well, the only thing I would add or offer on that is that, I mean, that's something we could definitely consider going forward, but I mean, if we're gonna be making a change, this first kind of rate structure change, we don't necessarily have to also change the frequency of the billing right now. I mean, that,
No, we don't. I didn't
I
know
mean,
if anybody
we
else,
could do that in a year, for example, if we felt that it would be more advantageous.
You're doubling your billing costs to do that 4 times a year rather than 2.
Right.
And that includes Pettichuck and Whitewater, because Whitewater has to go out now 4 times and read all the meters.
Right.
So just keep that in mind.
yeah,
And then me hounding them 4 times a year instead of 2 times a year.
so I would, so given that, I mean, I would propose that we accept the new rates at $1.40 a thousand for the 20,000 block.
Right.
$9.42 per thousand for the 20 to 60,000 block, $14.40 for over 60,000 gallons on a semi-annual basis.
Right.
With a customer service charge of $250 a year, which is 100,
125.
yeah, 125 on a semi-annual basis.
Sounds good.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, it was a motion. I think Tom just seconded it. I think I heard him second it.
Okay, I'll accept responsibility. Is that it?
I think Jim's underwater. Kateri is on mute.
Right.
Put on mute. Now, hello?
There you go.
Yeah, I'm
Jim's not breathing.
Jim
No,
is in suspended animation.
I agree.
I agree too.
I agree.
I agree.
Jim's totally lost.
5-0. 5-0 on the vote.
Yeah, I think that was 5-0. Maybe Jim lost his connection. Hopefully he'll get back in.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, I'll just wait for him to get back in.
Yeah. The next thing that I think the next thing that we need to decide is this whole issue of the unit method and how to apply it. And this has to do with larger numbers of residences like Harborside Village or like 95 Lawrence, or even condominium associations. And and, you know, how we want to handle that. What Doug, the rate consultant, had proposed was that we take the customer service charge of $250 a year, and you would multiply it by the number of residences. So for example, if you have a 3-unit condominium, it would be 3 times the 250 as a customer service charge, so $750 a year. And you would take the block, however, for the water usage, and you would take the first block at 20,000, and you would multiply that by 3, so that those 3 residences would stay in the lower cost, you know, $1.40 a thousand for longer. So it's basically giving each resident in a condominium complex the same rate as what a standalone residential customer would have. They get the customer charge, and they get the lower water usage fee. So that's the idea behind it. And then,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
so it's, you know, it's a way of being, you know, it's a way of being kind of, you know, everybody getting kind of the same thing. The issue is whether you want to do that, because I think Jim's, there he is. You came back to life.
I don't know what happened here.
I think your internet connection, Jim, is unstable for some reason, or slow.
speak to me, Jim.
You know what you could try, Jim, is if you go down to your video and just stop your video, and then we should have clean audio if you're still there.
He's not moving.
No,
Breathe, Jim, breathe.
poor guy.
Sorry about that. I don't.
Was that a Jim I just heard? Yeah.
Jim, was that you?
Go on.
Oh, now you're muted, Jim.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
There you go.
Hey, hey, welcome back.
You're back. So, Jim, I just started out with the unit method explanation using a three condominium example. You know, that we would multiply the customer service fee by the number of units, and that we would multiply the block by the number of units, so that 20,000 for a three unit condominium would become 60,000 as the first
Right.
block, and the customer service charge would go from 250 to 750 for those 3 units
Right. For the year.
for the year.
So I think that makes sense, you know, and that we had talked about this for Harborside, for example, that it would be the same structure would be used for Harborside. If it's 83 units, it would be 83 times 20,000 gallons for the 6-month period. And for the service fee, it would be 83 times $125 for a 6-month period.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
So the only thing that I was a little concerned about was if you ordinarily those each of the units typically would have a meter, and so the issue that we were kind of grinding along on was whether we should do something at a certain point where like for 95 Lawrence Road, if that's master metered and we have 60 units, or Harborside if it's master metered and we have, 80 units. If we do something to recognize the fact that we've got one meter, one bill, instead of, 60 or 80 meters and 60 or 80 bills. And kind of, at 250 a year for like the 80 units at Harborside Village, that would be about $20,000 just for the service fees
Right.
annually.
But the reality is that their water fees would be like 28, essentially for a 6-month period, would be like $28 times 80 or 83 units for 6 months.
Yeah, they had relatively low usage. It was, I think, it was about $1 million, I think,
Yeah.
Times the 0.0014. So it'd be another $1,400 on top of that, roughly. So they're looking at 20,000 in user fees and then like 1,400 in water charges.
The 20,000, was that for a year or for?
That's a year.
Okay, but then
That's
the
the whole year.
user fees would be twice a year, and that would be $1,440 twice a year, or roughly $3,600 in user fees. Which is, it's not, in my opinion, that's an insignificant amount. The users in water usage fees.
Oh, yeah, the water usage fees are very, very low. It's kind of the 20,000 annually in customer service charge that I was having a lot of heartburn about.
But
If you look at it, it's the same as if they're separate people. I don't know how the condo is going to charge or the trailer park is going to charge, but you wouldn't see any difference in price than you would with your own house.
if you had a single family home, you mean?
Yeah,
Right.
except Tom, that where I'm having the heartburn is for a single family home, we have a meter, and in this case we have 80 units in 1 meter versus 80 units in 80 meters, and we have 1 meter and 80 units in 1 bill versus 80 bills for 80 units, that we're chasing all 80 units.
Right. I think 1 meter is fine. 1 bill.
No, I know, but that's a huge savings for us in terms of, Karen chasing 80
It's not
people.
really savings, though.
Say again, Jim?
It's not really a savings for us. The only savings is the meter cost.
And the billing cost.
And the billing cost, 80 bills versus 1 bill. Just the Penachuk bill is, Penachuk charges us per bill. And then if Karen's got to go chase the deadbeats, I don't mean to be pejorative, but people who are, we're having collection trouble with, it's going to be a lot easier to collect from one.
Right.
I just think there's something there that in fairness we should be recognizing. I don't know how far to go, but
I think
that's where I
look at it that it's an issue of being equitable with other users on the system. So if I have a single family
Oh, something's gone.
I'm going to pay that
Uh-oh.
$125.
How do you? Oh,
We're losing Jim, huh?
I think we lost him again.
He should try a cell phone.
I think if he comes in with just his audio, he'll be okay. Video uses a lot more bandwidth, and I think he's just
What?
got an internet connection challenge.
Let me ask about the tenants. They are billed by the condominium office, and the condominium office pays the bill?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's it'll be most likely it'll be the same thing at 95 Lawrence. You know, they'll be collecting money from operations, and then they'll have a common contribution to water as they would, landscaping services and everything else. So like a condominium fee.
okay, so they do not monitor the individual use of each unit then?
We don't know that yet. That's something we do have to investigate, how POA intends to manage the water in each of the units.
I mean, part of it's, we're driving the bus to some extent. I mean, we could insist that they put meters on every unit.
Right.
Um,
But
You know,
if
that
we
would be
did that, then it would be that each unit would be paying it separately, or there would be right. And
No,
Yeah,
I
if we
don't,
had-
I don't think you'd have to demand that, because our responsibility be to only one meter, our meter. If they have trouble collecting from each other, then they could put meters in at their house just to find
Yeah.
out who's the one.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
That would
right.
be right.
Yeah, I think that's the preferred approach, Tom. I'm just saying that, as a water board, if we wanted to, we could insist on meters on every unit. I don't think that makes sense.
Not our meters, not our
Right.
meters,
Right.
but their meters is a different matter.
Yeah,
So the only thing I want to say is that if they decide down the line that they want us to bill them individually, just keep some kind of caveat in the procedures of what happens if they then, after it's all installed and they're running for a year, if they have a problem and they want us to bill them individually, we need to have something to cover us. Some kind of policy or procedure. That's all I'm saying. Just something to cover our butts.
You're right, Karen, but here's the thing. Look, if I don't pay my fees, if I'm running an apartment and don't pay my fees, whatever, how the landlord decides, he throws me out. That's his problem. It's not ours.
No,
Tom?
what I mean is later on, the condo association decides they want the town of Wellfleet to now bill everybody individually. So I just want some kind of coverage or some kind of terms that say, if that happens, then we have to, do something else.
Right. Well, just tell them they can't have water. They could, if they don't want, they want to put it in their own.
Tom,
Right.
Tom,
We'll
can I
send it
ask, Tom, when you was out in Syracuse, what they had, I would assume you had multi-unit apartment buildings out there, correct?
Correct. And usually what would happen is, just like Kirk just suggested, we agreed that they have one meter. In the rent covered your heat and your water, it was included. So if you didn't make the whole payment, you threw you out.
Right. But you didn't have separate meters for every unit.
Imagine, say you had a 6-story apartment house, where the hell would you put all the meters? The plumbing would be horrendous. It just wasn't practical.
Right. And was there a discount or any kind of reduction that was offered to the apartment building?
I never was involved in that. I wouldn't be able to comment.
What some of the other towns are doing is they're increasing so for example, if the main is a 1-inch main or a 2-inch main, they're increasing the customer service charge, you know, and in the case of like, you know, Barnstable, it goes from 188 a year for a residential, you know, family on a 5/8 line, up to $1,500 if it's a 2-inch meter, or $1,000 if it's a 1.5. So it's almost 10 times as expensive, you know, on an annual basis for the customer service charge. And then the water charge is, you know, is the standard water charge.
So Kurt, are you saying that that service charge was a single service charge for the entire building, or the number of units?
Yeah, what they were doing was by meter, by line size.
Line size, right?
Yeah, for the meter. So, you know, going to $1,500 a year. I mean, we're talking about our customer charge is 20,000 for the whole thing, not 1,500.
Yeah, well,
I've never understood that, because when I go put gas in my car, I just pay for the number of gallons I get. Except for the initial cost, having a 1-inch line coming to your place or a 1/2-inch line is no difference.
I think they're differentiating it because of the number of units that are connected on that line. And it's a way that they're going after the fact that it's, you know, it's one customer servicing, you know, one meter, one bill, servicing an awful lot more users.
What do we care? We're one meter, one bill. And we can charge them by the gallon. I never understood that line size, except for the initial installation.
well,
Yeah, the installation would be where it would be appropriate. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can go out with it. I just am kind of, you know, our biggest challenge is to get customers on the system, and you know, that's a big one.
but,
Jim,
yeah, I would say that the two large ones that we have the potential for, I don't think are going to resist the customer service fees here. In fact, we're still going to have to discuss how do we handle a situation like Harborside, where most of the units are empty during the winter months. I mean, are we going to be charging the same base service fee for that site, you know, or are we going to cut it back to $100 as was proposed before, you know, for the winter months?
Well, that won't matter, because the master meter is going to be on all the time, and
Right.
the prices will drop, and that's what the landlord there, or the association, is still going to have to run the system.
Right.
Yeah, because it's also very complicated, you know.
Yes.
There are seasonal people who come regularly for weekends, you know, through the off season, even though they're not full-time residents.
Right.
it's about, I think it's like a third of the residents there are full-time. And then the other 2/3 are either summer only or seasonal, or, you know, come back and forth. So it's about, you know,
But we can't
2/3,
get-
2/3,
I mean, we
1/3.
can't get into the job of monitoring who's seasonal and who isn't. I mean, that's the landlords or the condo associations.
Right.
Yeah, we don't care. We get some water usage in the wintertime, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a question about 95 Lawrence, though. We don't even know how that's going to be run, do we? We know it's
Yeah.
managed by somebody, but how's are they going to have an association, or is the management company just going to run everything? I don't
Well,
think it'll make too much difference in our decision, but I think it's going to be something we're going to have to deal with.
Well, Tom, as my understanding, the way that POA manages their properties, that they do have a management company that that manages it, all the services for the units in the building or buildings that they have. So it's, you know, they pay the tenant pays a single fee, a rental fee that includes any services that are provided by the management company. That would include water, and if it's heated, that would include heat or whatever else. I do think there with at 95 Lawrence that there's a likelihood, because of the solar panels, that there may be electricity may be individually metered.
I think they have to individually meter electricity by law anyway.
Yeah.
So that water's not in that camp. Well, I would just to kind of move it. I guess what I would do is move that we we accept Doug's suggestion of the unit method, whereby for each residence that's attached to a meter, that we multiply the customer charge by the number of residences, and that we multiply the billing block, by the number of residences.
Right. Can I ask Kurt on that? So if we have a 2-family home, we're not making a distinction. It's either one, or it's anything more than one unit in that property would get charged by the number, would be charged for the number of base service fees based on the number of residential units there.
Correct. And I think to be clear, we would talk about a residential unit. So it's, so if you have a condo association, go ahead.
I agree with you. I think that that's the way to go. And
and that's I think that's also helpful, just parenthetically, I think that's helpful for affordable housing too.
Okay. Yeah, that was my concern. Are we discouraging people from having affordable dwelling units here by charging the base service fee twice if they have one on their property?
Well, if the people are paying for their utilities.
Well, the trade-off is they're getting the advantage again of the block being extended.
Extended, right.
So their usage fee is capped at the lower fee in exchange for a higher customer service fee.
And frankly, would be simpler for us in terms of managing this if we recognize each unit that's on the site.
And also the other thing about this is if it's year round resident, they're taking advantage of a much lower usage fee. You know, if you're a summertime only resident, you're hit with that $250 whether you use 1 gallon or none,
Right.
or whatever, and you're not likely to use as much if you're only here for a short period of time. So the benefit of a lower commodity charge goes to year-round residents.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, that was my motion.
I second that.
Okay.
Okay,
So, any further discussion on that?
no, I think we. Bye.
Okay, Kurt, would you repeat the motion then, please?
Yeah, the motion is that we adopt the unit method for the purposes of calculating customer service fee, whereby each residential unit would be charged the customer service fee, and the billing block would be multiplied by the number of units, the number of residences attached to that meter.
Right. Yeah, and I had seconded that. So can we take a roll call vote?
Sure.
Katrin,
Yes.
Neil? Did we lose Neil?
He was muted, but I saw his lips move. I'm not sure. I believe it was yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes,
Kurt,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So it's unanimous on that methodology.
Good,
Um,
good.
But now, can I point out one thing that you said? So maybe this will carry us into the next part of the discussion. You were talking about each residential unit. What about commercial units?
So with,
What-
yeah, with commercial units, the one thing that I looked at was, first of all, they cannot, a business really doesn't have a lot of ability to conserve water. You know, and the basic structure that we adopted has very high costs for those later blocks. So for example, we're at $14.15 for over 60,000 gallons now. So that's been reduced from 80,000 to 60,000 for the highest block. And, you know, I can see charging something like that if somebody wants to fill a swimming pool, but, you know, for basic business, you know, when they put the low flow toilets in and they've got the low flow sink aerators and so on, at 1440, there's nobody close to us in terms of a top rate.
Right.
And many of I'll just go down the list here of top rates. In Bourne, they level out at 275, and it's basically 275 flat for every customer. Dennis tops out at $4 a gallon.
$4 a gallon?
I'm sorry, yeah, $4 per 1,000 gallons. Falmouth tops out at $3.50 per 1,000 gallons. Barnstable tops out at $4.83. The Provincetown tops out at $9. Orleans, $8.40. So there's nobody that's even close to us at those high levels. And for many of them, the commercial rates are around $4 a 1,000 gallons, and they just keep it flat. You know, it's
Kurt, I only see one commercial fee, a commercial rate on this schedule that you had.
on the one that I have, there is so Barnstable's 483.
Right.
I kind of included Falmouth because Falmouth is flat for everybody at 350, commercial
Right.
or residential. The same is, well, Dennis tops out at 4, and Bourne is flat also for all users at 275. So whether it's commercial or residential, but they don't have an increasing block structure for both residential and commercial. I was trying to find more appropriate examples to compare us to, but you're right, Jim. I mean, I think there are others that had commercial rates and I didn't necessarily include them in this. But Barnstable would be the best example at 483. And at their lowest block, the initial block is 475. So they go from 475 to 618 for residential, and commercial's 483. You know, we're at 140, and then we go to $9 and then $14.
Yeah.
But
Right.
anyway, I did look at just a few restaurants because those are our big commercial users. And I just took the bookstore Max, the town of Wellfleet at the Recreation, and the Pearl, because those were pretty big users. And right now they're using about 12% of the water at about 1.5 million gallons a year. And they're contributing about 20% of the revenue. So they're 10% of the water and 20% of the revenue. And I think that's primarily because they're in the really high block. If we change the block from, for example, the bookstore is using 445,000 gallons.
What,
So
per year?
That's in the summertime so that's like a 6 months.
So 445,000?
Yeah, just in the summer months.
And if you were taking it as a single rate, it would be the 1442 or?
Yeah. And the bookstore in the winter time is using about 120,000 still. So of that 120,000, 100,000 is obviously at the higher rates. So overall, they're
So just taking that number for the bookstore once and looking at that, 445,000 in a 6-month period would equate to $6,416 for water for that 6-month period. Do you think that that's, that's what they're paying now essentially, right?
right. Yeah, 5834.
So.
Even if
can we see what happens with this for a year? If we go with this 3-tier approach, the existing 3-tier approach, and then monitor that in terms of what the impact might be on a commercial establishment.
well, their bills are going to go up, by the customer, by the amount of the customer service fee, and they're also going to go up because we've changed the top block. Used to be 85,000 before it went to the $14 a thousand, and we've reduced that down to 60,000. So that's going to be about a 30% increase in a lot of their water use.
Okay.
See what I mean? So because the block,
it went from they had one more tier at the 60 to 85,000. If you're saying,
yeah,
but
and that was about $11. So up to the 85,000, they were kind of at 11,
right?
And now they're going to be at the 14 at 60,000.
Yeah.
It's going to be a pretty significant impact to them. And again, if they could conserve or they could do something about it, the rate would make sense, but our cost structure doesn't go up. For the additional gallons that we're providing, it's not costing us anything more than the other gallons.
The other thing though, Kurt, is that under the existing rate structure, the water from 20 to 35,000 gallons is essentially would be $3 cheaper under the old rate than it would be under the new rate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big impact.
Yeah.
It's $3 more at that level. It's $5 at the next level.
But we would not be assessing them a higher base service fee. It would be the same as any residential unit, correct?
Yeah, well, yeah. It's the same. It's the same anyway. What I was thinking is that if we were, even like at 9, I don't know. anything we propose, I guess what I'm feeling is that, you know, they're looking at about somewhere between, say, a 30 and 50% greater increase in their rates than residential customers because of what Doug did with the blocks. You know, if we took even if we were at a flat like 9 cents, which is sort of middle of the
Between the second and third where?
yeah, it's the middle tier. Like if we're at about $9 a thousand, that's going to have a much lower impact on them than what we're proposing. I mean, I think you know, I would feel better if we had something that was a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a huge jump from the was
Right.
the 20,000, which is $1.38 per 1,000 gallons, up to the $9.42 per 1,000 gallons for the next tier.
Right.
That's kind of hard to justify it.
Yeah.
Well, what it would do though is that, you know, for example, at the current rate structure, the bookstore is paying $58.34. If we were at 9 cents, they would be paying about $4,000. So it'd be about an $1,800 savings
For them.
for them. And then, you know, Max is about the same level of usage. You know, they would see some savings.
It's still higher than what now, right?
Yeah, and when I say savings, what I think it really means is they're going to see a reduction in the increase. It's not really savings.
Right. I think it's a logical conclusion, logical way of doing it. There's not much more they can do to conserve, so we're not getting any incentive to conserve at $9 or $14, whichever. Okay.
What'd you say, Tom?
I said I like the idea of using that interim commercial fee rate. Did I put everybody to sleep when I said
Yeah,
that?
no.
No.
What I would probably feel a little more comfortable with is if I could do. I just did some back of the envelope, and what I should really do is look at what they're paying now, what they would pay on our proposed rates, and look at something that mitigates the impact of the proposed rates.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea that we do a little bit more analysis on that.
I mean, I wouldn't want to do something back of the envelope and kind of miss.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So why don't we table that? But I did want to bring up the idea if the board wants me to pursue that.
I think it's a good idea.
I do too.
Kateri, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's now you said that they use 10% of the water and pay for 20% of the expense. Is that what
Yeah,
something you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, that's about right.
So in one sense, they're helping to support everybody else.
Right.
They're subsidizing a lot of, yes, they are.
So is that enough, or do we think we should, you know, contributing more. I mean, the problem with our current system is now it's paying for itself, right?
Right.
Right. My concern, Kateri, is that with the new rates, their fees are going to go up significantly because they're already in the highest cost tiers. So, you know, if the average residential customer is seeing, they're going to see some increase because of the new customer service fee. And I think it was like, Doug had the numbers, but it was about like 40% or something like that. And these commercial customers could see, you know, 60, 70% increase.
That seems like more than an increase like that, I think, would really cause a lot of hard feelings.
So anyway, let me try to find out what the real numbers are. I mean, at least to present them to the board.
Okay.
You know, doing, you know, current, proposed, and I can just pick, there's not that many people we have to look at, but.
So I think that's a good idea to
Okay.
do an analysis.
Yep.
So I think the one other area that we probably should at least start the discussion on is the connection fee.
Yeah.
I mean, that graph that you did, I think was really telling, you know, and I would hope that we could get ourselves down to closer to like Chatham and Barnstable in that, particularly since we're not going to be able to use connection fees for operations anymore. The only thing that can be used is to repay the debt service.
And I think we should remember that those were put in there, the high fees were put in there to be punitive.
Right.
The people who were charged at that time did not want a water system.
Right.
Is the $9,000 fee that we're charging for the connection fee, is that commercial or residential?
Well, if I may take that, I believe the way that Kurt had estimated that was that it's $6,000 for the connection fee, and then it costs you another $3,000 to get the connection from the curb stop to your house.
Oh, one is a payment to the town and one is payment to the contractor.
Right.
Right.
But if you look at the schedule that he did, it talks about what the connection fees are here in other towns. They're all much lower. The highest was in Barnstable, I think, and well, Barnstable was the highest, correct?
Yeah. Then P-Town, and then Brewster, yeah.
Excuse me.
I mean, but, you know, one of the things we're going to have to face up to is we really have to make some fundamental changes, that this whole water system was put up by people who really didn't know what they were doing.
And didn't want it to begin with.
Yeah. And so we can't be over influenced by the unfortunate expense that certain people have. You know, that's too bad, but that's history.
I kind of was thinking a lot about it, and I think, Karen, is our meter costed about $350 now a meter?
I think so, because I have to buy a radio too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So total.
So my feeling was we need to get customers desperately. I mean, that's the salvation of the water system becoming self-sustainable. And, you know, Eastham actually gives customers the meter and the radio. They give stuff away. There's other towns that are doing that to get customers on. Some municipalities literally pay. They also go as far as to pay the cost of the service from the curb stop to the home. I mean, I think Wellfleet, if we were simply covering our costs of, inspecting the line and getting recovery for the meter, and charging something like $500, with the customer still being responsible for the private contractor cost to go from the curb stop to the meter pit, that we're going to start to see a lot more connections. And I don't think that's, I think that kind of, goes toward at least reasonably covering our costs, but also not making making it attractive to the end user.
Yeah, I mean, that should be our primary emphasis at this point.
But Kurt, when you did the estimated costs on here, that for towns like Chatham, Bourne, Barnstable, they're in the range of 3,000 to 4,000 here. But are you saying that includes the cost of a plumber making the connection to the house?
Yeah, it does. So that's, so if we had a $500 connection fee in Wellfleet, that would turn into probably $3,500 to the customer, because it'd be about $3,000 to run the line, to make the connection, and then the $500 connection fee. So the private cost for a typical connection in East, is $3,000 in Eastham, but they give away everything. You get the meter, you get the inspection, you get everything, and the $3,000 is the private cost. So if we were charging a $500 connection fee, the customer is still going to have to run the service from the curb stop to the meter, and that's going to, in Wellfleet, typically be about another $3,000 with a private contractor doing it. In the future, if DPW were able to do it, it may bring it down to more like 2,000.
Right. So
the total in that case would be more like 2,500.
Yeah. Well, from the discussion in our last meeting, it didn't sound like DPW would be in the position where anything like that would happen quickly.
Right.
And that's kind of why I'm thinking if we took a stab at, just a connection fee of $500, and the customer's responsible for the contractor to make the, to install the line from the curb stop to the meter, that at least we could get going with something.
So the problem we're going to have with that, Kurt, is that for those people that have already paid $6,000 into the system for a connection but haven't done it yet.
How many are they?
Karen?
I don't have a number for you. I don't know off the top of my head.
At one point, we had close to 50 that were in that group, correct?
But see, we've been making them pay it off. So people have been paying it off. So I don't know how many. I can get back to you with an exact number of how many people aren't connected.
And how much they owe.
I think
Okay.
we're missing an opportunity here. Now's the time for us to say, hey, we cleared that up and we're going on. Nobody's going to have to do that again, and we're the heroes.
I kind of agree, because I think the advantage of it is, if, for example, some people are in a payment program and we said, we're going to suspend your payments, you can connect at any time. We may get a bunch of people that are in that group signing, connecting
Right away.
Right away. And going forward, we're getting lifetime customers. We're getting, lifetime revenue from a person once they connect to the system.
Right.
They're not going to go back the other way.
I'm gonna have them call you.
Yeah.
Well, there's no doubt, Karen, but we've inherited, I think, a horrible situation and one that was ill-conceived from the get-go.
I
And
get it.
all we can do is fix it and go forward. And we're gonna, there are gonna be people who are gonna, complain, but at the end of the day, the town also has a significant budget problem. And we've got to figure out how to, continue to reduce the amount of money that the town's subsidizing the water system. And the only way to do that is to get more customers on.
No, you're right. I mean, that has to be our emphasis. And
And I think we can bite the bullet, and there's going to be some people unhappy, but what do we have for a connection rate? 50% or less?
oh, well
Yeah.
under
Less.
50. Well under 50.
Like,
So if
I
it's
think
20,
it's like 10.
so
We're only at
90%
like
of those,
300.
so 90% of the people who are joining the system are going to be thrilled that we just reduced the connection fee.
Yes. That's where we have to keep reminding ourselves.
There's going to be 10% of people who are going to be upset, but the other 90% are going to be thrilled.
Well, some of them have died off. Just remember that.
Ever the optimist.
Well, what's the median age in this town? It's pretty high.
Right. So,
I don't know. Does
Oh, yeah,
anybody?
we can't make everybody happy, but what we do have to do is make ourselves happy and make the budget happy.
Yeah.
So I think we're in agreement that the connection fee, whatever that may be, is going to be substantially reduced.
Yes,
If
definitely.
it's possible. I think we also have to take this through legal counsel now to determine whether or not we have that option to do that, given the number of people that are out there waiting to connect who paid into this. And what do we do to compensate them, if anything?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what I would do is, does anybody feel like a different number would make more sense than like $500 as a connection fee?
Well, that's a big drop from 6,000.
Yes.
Well, the
Yes.
reasoning there is covering the meter cost and covering the, the inspection cost.
Yeah, I mean, it's just paying for something. No,
Yeah.
I think that's okay. That's okay. Now, the confusing piece is going to be, the people who paid their 6,000 and now, hey, everybody's getting a deal. Well, we can't help that. It's the people that are working on it that are going to be the trickiest to deal with. Right?
Right.
And that's where Karen said she's going to get us some data on how many there are and how much they owe.
Right.
We can
Well-
look at it at our next meeting.
What I would feel comfortable doing is making a motion that we change the connection fee to 500. And then, we're still going to have, whatever the number is, we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with transition people anyway.
Yeah, true.
And I don't think we can decide that right now.
But Kurt, isn't that connection fee supposed to pay our debt services?
No,
That money is,
it ordinarily would be a contribution, but in reality, the town is obligated to those general bonds and those financings, as Jim, pointed out earlier when we were looking at the budget. So the town's already approved those expenditures, and the town is paying them, the general obligation bonds. So these additional connection fees, or in the past, were going toward the system operating costs, and Doug has said that you really can't do that. Going forward, the $500 would still go toward reducing the debt service. But if ultimately the town is paying the subsidizing the water commission, the water service less because we get more customers, the overall cost of the town is going down.
Well,
Good work.
Well, 500 seems reasonable, and since it's related to the cost of the meter as part of it, that makes sense.
but
just
I'm
make sure
looking
you
at what
cover
the
the
other-
overhead.
I'm looking at the
Right.
other towns here too, and not in terms of connection fees, and then you have estimated costs. And the estimated cost, I assume what you're saying is that includes your connection fee plus installation and and meters and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not sure that I would want to go as low as 500. I think that maybe take it down to 1,500 or something like that. It's not that we're going to that we want to have that money to use for something, because we understand they can only be used to pay debt service or to fund new initiatives. But
So,
if we take it away, then I think it's going to be hard for us to increase it going forward. And if we need to use that money for system expansion in the future, if we get so lucky as we get our debt, our total debt paid off at this point, but that we want to, install another main someplace, we won't have a reserve for it if we get rid of this.
well, we don't have the reserve anyway, but that's kind of a different thing. I guess my concern is that, somewhere between 3,500 and 4,500, it's advantageous to connect to our system rather than putting in a new well. Because well costs are, a little bit higher than that. I think we compete against somebody having to put in a new well. And at 1,500, that would put us at probably 4,500 total.
Why do
So
you say why does it go up so much?
Well, 1,500 plus the 3,000 that it would cost for the service to be run from the curb stop to the meter.
That's a fairly high cost.
3,000?
Yeah.
Well, that's what just kind of came up typically on, from looking at all these other towns, what it's costing for a private connection cost. And just to use a bogey, just so we have apples and apples from town to town. Yeah, it might be high, it might be low, but it's kind of a ballpark. I mean, I think it's a typical 60-foot run or something like that on average. In any event, I mean, I guess my feeling is we have to be aggressive about trying to provide an incentive for people to connect. I mean, whether it's, even if we compromised at say 750 or 1,000, I think we're moving in the right direction. But
How about 750? How about 750? Let's compromise and settle.
750 I think 750 is attractive.
The only thing, again, I want to say that it's easier, to go down than it is to go up. Once we put this in place, if we need more in reserves, in infrastructure reserves, which is what this would be going forward, then it's going to be hard for us to raise that kind of money. There's no guarantee that we're going to have access to grants at the level we've had.
Plus I gotta replace the meters. Hey, Jim, Gail has her hand up.
Oh, I see the hand. I love that. The little yellow
Okay.
hand.
Go ahead, Gail.
Let me see if I can get this all together. With respect to the people who have paid a connection fee but not hooked up, and I'm thinking mostly of phase one because I'm in phase one and I remember those conversations. And I think the fact that they have not hooked up means that they paid that money as a placeholder. And I remember that we were all encouraged to do that. And it was suggested that if we didn't do that, we might not be able to get on the system when we needed water. But as it's turned out, there's plenty of space and you're looking for people to hook up. I think it's difficult not to give those people a real benefit if you drop the connection fees, because they've never used it. And I just want to throw that out there for your consideration.
Right.
Okay, I'm finished.
No, thank you.
Well,
Well,
I'll move
yeah,
that we, yeah, I'll move that we adopt a $750 connection fee.
Yeah, let's adopt something right now, but I mean, I don't think we can look forward to changing these rates every couple of years or so. I mean, we've got to make a commitment that is realistic looking to the future.
That's
And
why
what other,
I'm still uncomfortable with it, that it's so low then. I think that it, you know, if we went from 6,000 down to 3,000, that's a huge cut. If 6,000 down to 2,000 is still a huge cut.
But we're still not going
And
to
we
get
can
people,
go-
Jim.
We can go further if we decide that makes sense to do that, but it's tough to go the other way.
yeah, but I liked what Kurt was talking about with the cost of putting a well in. I mean, that to me, which I had not really known before, is a compelling argument to go make this cheaper than that.
You know, and Jim, I think we're, you know, I mean, I've done rates for a long time, and I've, you know, if we're getting a wildly attractive response and all of a sudden there's tons of people that want to connect to the system because of the change, that's a good thing. And I think we'd be in a position to raise the fees. And frankly, at that point, if you have lots of people wanting to connect finally, it says you've got to the right price point where it's now attractive. The alternative is, well, the alternative is we just keep doing what we're doing and expecting a different result, you know, which is people aren't connecting.
Well, how about considering an quote introductory rate that, or introductory connection rate for the time being, because of the change in the rate structure, as well as the new water main on Briar Lane and
Sounds like we're having a fire sale.
that's what we did before.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing, Jim. I mean, to talk about, you know, an introductory connection fee. I honestly think that we're going to be, in I mean, the best thing that could happen to us is that a lot of people want to connect. And my biggest fear is we just keep muddling along, you know, you know, really trying to get people to connect and encouraging it. And we just keep muddling along with this lousy set of economics. I mean, the economics when we get another 75 or 100 people on the system is huge. The lifetime earnings are huge. And we forego that if we have fees that are continuing to, you know, inhibit people from connecting.
Can we call the issue and see how we feel at this point?
Sure. So what would you like us to react to?
500 or 750?
So I'll second that.
Okay, roll call vote.
I'll say aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Neil.
Aye.
Okay, well, I am not in favor of it, but so I would say nay, but I would offer another a change to that, and that would be that it would be on a quote a temporary introductory rate of 750.
I don't know
I'll
what that
second
means.
that. Yeah, I mean, I second that. I think that's
It's
a
like what we
good,
did before,
Yeah.
what we did before, Katrin, when the fee was not 6,000. It was initially the connection fee was 10,000 for a private residence, And we reduced it to 5,000. It was reduced in the first year to 5,000 to get people to hook up. And then it would, with the understanding it would increase by $1,000 each year. So that's how we got to 6,000. But then we didn't get any takers after that.
Yeah.
So
Hey-
that's when.
Hey, Jim,
Yeah.
what happens if what is it, Harborside with the
Right.
80 people join at 750? There's a huge chunk of money we just like flushed down the toilet.
Well,
No.
they wouldn't be paying the connection fee to begin with.
Right, because there's only one connection.
Okay,
No, I like your idea, Jim. I think that's the right way to pitch it, as an introductory connection fee. Which also tells people that, you know, we may change it in the future. So that's fine.
Well, I like that.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I second that motion.
Okay. So what do we do with the first one? Because it passed.
Well, it's 750 as an introductory rate, and then, you know, that we go with that and then see where we end up.
Okay.
Do we
So
have to
a vote on
specify,
that?
why do we want to specify it's an introductory rate? Because that is leading people to think that this is going to be up and down and all around over the next couple of years.
My reasoning for that, Kateri, is that if we need to increase the connection fee going forward, it's easier if we have not set it as a firm fee of $750. We said it's introductory at that rate, so
And
that it could go up.
And I think we can associate that with it, to make people feel happier, is that that's associated with all our new main connections that will be available.
Right.
Necessarily the whole system.
And you know, going forward, I think we do have to think about, Provincetown actually laid out, I don't know, I think I sent that at one point, but Provincetown laid out a whole forward-looking rate structure. So here's the rate this year, here's the rate next year, here's the rate the following year, here's the rate the year after that. It was kind of crazy, and I think, Jim, I think it's a great idea to talk about an introductory rate, because we want to get customers on the system now.
Right.
And, you know, I think that's going to help. It's a great marketing approach to just incent, you know, to put it out there and just say, hey, look, this is an introductory rate. We don't know how long it's going to last. You might want to take advantage of it now.
I think there's a lot of public relations wrapped up in all of this.
Yeah.
Well, definitely.
Yep, for sure.
And I'd rather not make things too complicated or too simple. Yeah, I mean, definitely we have to change, you know, it cannot be 6,000. No question about that. It seems to me reasonable that it would certainly should make it attractively cheaper than putting in a well. Okay. And I would just let it go at that for now. If we have to make changes later, I mean, it's hard to have a lot of potential things for people to argue about. You know.
Yeah, no, I think we voted a 750 connection fee, and I think we ought to call it an introductory connection fee.
Right. I like it.
You know, I think Jim's suggestion is good. I think we keep it at 750, call it an introductory connection fee, and let's see if we get some market reaction. Nothing else we've done has worked.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if I vote yes, will Jim vote yes?
I will vote yes on that, because
I'll give you this. I find it confusing, but I'll give it to you.
Yeah, I just want to be sure that we don't burn that bridge. That's all.
Yep.
Yeah.
I vote yes.
Neil?
Yes.
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 And I vote yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I want to know who's taking the phone calls, because I'm not taking them.
I'll take them. Send them to me, Karen. Send them to me. I'm happy to take them.
Okay, I'll put your number on the website because I'm not taking those calls. I can hear it now.
But Kurt, it's starting
got-
mosquito season. How can you possibly take the phone call?
I deal with plenty of angry customers.
Yeah.
I've been
Okay,
dealing with angry customers for about 25 years, not in this mosquito business, but our
whatever.
mosquito customers are very happy, but believe me, that's what I largely do is deal with the people who are having problems.
So, did we need to go ahead with any further discussion on this now? I mean, I know we have to get I think we have to get legal counsel on changing the rate structure, particularly on the connection fees. And the use of the unit methodology, I think, is pretty straightforward. It's applied in other towns. I think we're going to be coming back to this, you know, to tweak it further over the next several meetings. So, you were going to do some analysis, Kurt, on the
Yep. For people who aren't connected and how much they owe.
Right. And also on the impact of the tiers on the
Commercial,
commercial users, right?
Yeah,
on the commercial users.
Right.
yeah.
Anything else?
Minute.
Yes, I know, Karen. Yeah. Anything else before we move on to the minutes?
Not me. I feel good we got some things accomplished today.
Yeah. And we could hear you, Tom.
I told you, thank Kurt. It was so simple, it plumb evaded us. But it took a long time for us to figure it out.
Okay, so the first minutes are for Tuesday, April 12th.
And that was
Yeah.
just a change from my putting me in, wasn't that it?
Yes.
So that really didn't matter. Yeah.
The
So
one
that's-
that, and Kurt, he was there, and Neil was there. We're all there, okay. So we didn't pass that yet, right? Or,
No, we
have to
haven't.
pass it with that change.
okay. So, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of April 12th?
So moved.
Second,
Okay. Roll call vote, Katerine,
Aye.
Neil,
aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Okay. So the next set of minutes are for the meeting of Tuesday, April 26th. Any discussion, any comments on them? Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Katerine,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Neil,
I wasn't there.
he wasn't there, correct, okay. Kurt,
Aye.
and I was there, and I vote aye.
Okay.
Okay, so four in favor, one abstention. Okay, so the next item would be our next meeting. 2 weeks out.
Is
would
what?
put us,
I'm still in March here.
24th
Yeah.
or the 31st?
You want to do it then,
Which one?
24th?
Yeah, that's probably a good idea, because if there's anything that has to get done before town meeting, you know. May 24th.
The 24th is okay. There is the pre-town meeting forum is, yeah, the pre-town meeting forum is also on the 24th,
At what time?
7 o'clock.
So it's very possible that we wouldn't have a huge agenda for that meeting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, let's limit it to an hour or something like that.
yeah, we can do
Just
that.
as an FYI.
Yeah, there is two items that I'd like us to consider. Is this issue of trucking water and selling water to people who are interested in having it trucked to their home site.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about that from a public health point of view.
Okay.
You think I talk a lot now?
Yeah. So I will put that on the agenda for that meeting.
Yeah,
And we,
Jim, did you want to
Any-
talk about Maurice's campground?
yeah, but I think by then we'll have more information on that. You know, because the meetings are there is a meeting this Friday on it. So, yeah, we can put that on the agenda as well. Okay.
Jim, are you going to be at that Friday meeting?
This Friday, I was
Yeah.
I'm not planning on it. I'm not the, not Joe. I think who's the representative on ours committee is, I wasn't planning on going, Kurt. For that.
Okay.
Why? Would you?
No, I got asked to go because of wastewater. And I mean, the only thing we really have for involvement is the fact that the Board of Water Commissioners had approved the town of Eastham supplying water to the movie theater.
Right.
And, you know, I guess this would be an extension of that, but I mean, you know, I don't know that we're going to get involved really. It's just kind of.
I do know that they've had some discussions about that already, but I think there was general positive review by Eastham on that.
Yeah, so, you know, unless or until there was a formal kind of request from either the town or Maurice's, I don't know that we'd have much involvement. You know, they would be asking for an exemption to be able to get supplied from Eastham, right?
Right.
So,
Okay. So, but we can talk about Maurice's at the next meeting. This will be
Okay.
more information that's available then.
That makes sense to start. We have to start sooner or later.
Right. Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
so move.
Second,
Okay. Roll call. Kateri,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Neil,
aye.
Kurt,
I.
and I vote aye. So it's unanimous for adjournment. Okay, so we will look forward to seeing everybody on that Tuesday, the 24th,
Right.
and at 4 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah.
Hope you're
Yeah.
feeling better, Jim.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't share
Feel
that.
better.
Yeah, well, I'm taking medication now, so I started it this morning, so we'll see.
Good deal. Well, take care.
Karen, is
Yes,
she, if you need
Yeah, I'm
any
here.
help, if you need any help getting some of these numbers together, I'd be happy to come
no, I have
over.
them on a spreadsheet. No, I have them on a
Oh, okay.
spreadsheet. I just
Okay.
have to pull it. That's all.
Okay,
It's not a big deal. Thank you, though.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Good night.